For more on this story, we can bring in Joël Ruet, president of a Bridge Tank, who joins us from Paris. Thank you very much for joining us on the program this evening. Is there any end in sight to this trade war between Washington and Beijing?
Well, it's been trade battles, I would say. It's not yet a trade war because, first of all, the discussions are going on. There are negotiations, and there are negotiations which are going on just now. So some of those announcements may be very tactical, So I'm not sure we're yet in a war. Even if you look at the magnitude of we're talking about few dozens of billions of dollars over a year. That's not that big, that's still a marginal, that's still, I would say, at least a minority part of the trade across the two countries. So I think we have today the two parties kind of testing the water, testing each other, and it's not yet a war.
Okay, it's not a war, but China has shown that it's not willing to take these tariffs from Washington lying down. What do you make of Beijing's stance? Is that helping or hurting these talks?
I think that when you come at the level of a talk and during a talk, you cannot look to be not responding. They had to respond. The Chinese side had to respond. But I think we should be very careful to distinguish between what's the heart of the negotiations, and we cannot know because these are secret negotiations, and what's kind of public communications. And as of now, you have some kind of threats of retaliation. That's for public communication, and you have the heart of the negotiation. Now, what is very important to notice is that for the last few months, Beijing has been very keen to send very high-level, very seasoned negotiators to go to Washington to discuss and negotiate. And fundamentally, it's in no interest. It's in the interest of no party to go into a real war because the supply chain is very intricated between China and the US. This is on the short run. Now, on the long run, this is not at all in the interest of the US, and this might be, on the long run, in the interest of China. Even if China would have to absorb a shock today, China knows that in the long run, they have to diversify their trade with different countries. And they will be able to diversify their trade with all countries all around the world because they have a competitive advantage.
Now, you
Whereas
spoke
the US
about
don't
the supply.
have this competitive...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you just touched on an important point. You spoke about the supply chain between the two countries, how they're so interlinked. And I want to ask you a question because we do have some Chinese companies that need US technology, for instance, to grow. Tech firms, I'm thinking specifically of tech firms, but when they want to purchase an American company and buy an American company outright, suddenly they're blocked on national security grounds. Is that fair?
Sure. Here we're no longer talking trade. We're talking investment. Your question has become investment. To complete with trade, the Chinese supply chain depends much less within trade on the US because even on the technology side, when you need to purchase technological services through trade, well, the margin you have, the profit you have at the end of your action is much more. Whereas the value chain in the industry, manufacturing in the US might be rather thin, and the impact of trade taxes would be higher. Now, if we switch to your question on investment, that's also part of a hidden element of the negotiation. The Chinese have added a large amount of currency reserves. The only way for them to use their currency reserves in dollars is to reinvest all across the world, not just in the US, but also in the US. And in a sense, the Chinese authorities consider that by having accumulated those reserves, those currency or in US dollars, they've been hiddenly supporting the US economy, which is not reforming, so that today they would have the right, and they see that as a right, to reinvest those dollars into the US economy.
Joël Ruet, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program this evening.